I think actually before I show you guys the thing that I want to show you, um, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys a few updates. People in exclusive access will already be familiar with these updates, but for people that the last time they tuned in was either last week or from the Treasure Cup, these are some updates that we made to the game. The first is that we added some additional functionality over here where we allow you to pick a banner that'll be displayed in the HUD. So you can pick the banner, you can change sort of the color of the text and all that. Um, so for example, if I wanted this one, I can change I can change the text color, I can change the stroke color. It's a nice one. I like this. I'll save this over here. And this will be displayed in the game while you're playing. So I'm gonna hop in here and I'm gonna show you something else that we changed, which I hope you guys will like. It certainly will add to the meta. And it is the concept of a perfect shield. Oh, and this is what I was referring to with like the banner being displayed in the HUD. We alter the transparency when you approach it, so to make it not distracting when you're trying to train recoveries. Um, but let me show you the next update. So we implemented a perfect shield, which is basically if you execute the shield within the first few frames of an attack reaching you, then it serves as a counter attack, right? So on projectiles, what happens is that it'll bounce the projectile back to the opponent. Um, for other attacks, like just like hand-to-hand combat, it'll stun the opponent. So I'll show you an example of both of those. Um, so obviously I didn't defend this because I wasn't controlling my player, but I just wanted to record it for the opponent so that I can try to time it properly now. Okay, so the idea is as soon as the water special hits me, I want to hit the shield just like that. And then you can bounce it off so that it basically serves as your projectile now. So now this adds sort of a new layer to the game, which I hope people will use to come up with more defensive strategies, because I think defensive strategies are really cool. But with that said, like for example, if I just launched the special over here, um, oh, actually, let me wait till it charges up. And just so I show you that if you don't time it properly, then the shield just serves as a regular shield. So I will just wait for their special to charge up. And then I'll just hold it. And here it just serves as a regular shield, right? So it's only in the case when you time it perfectly, that's when it'll actually bounce the projectile back at them. Okay? Another one I want to show you is the stun. Okay, so I'll just like punch a few times over here. And if you use the shield within the, like I mentioned, the first couple frames of the attack reaching you, it stuns the opponent. Um, so it's hard to get the timing right. uh, didn't work there. I'm gonna get it, guys. I'm gonna get it, I promise. There you go. So it stunned the opponent so that you can easily just counter them. Of course, it's not easy to pull off. Um, and if we made it easy to pull off, then it wouldn't be worth trying to teach your AI how to do this. But yeah, so we did this so that you can actually teach your AI to counter your opponent really effectively. And I have done a few examples of training my AI to do it, but I'm still not too good at it. So I won't be covering that in this specific session. Once I get better at doing it, then I'll kind of cover it. Um, but I want to cover something else. So those are some of the big updates. We have a few others, which I won't get into, but those are some of the big updates for the game. Just wondering if anyone has any questions before I show you guys what I want to teach you.
Yep, we got a question from
Yep.
Dennis Poppy
Yeah.
and Mendel asking that after the special being parry back, perfect shield back to the opponent, can the opponent perfect shield back to the shooting person?
They can. They can. So if you guys ever want to play ping pong, you can do that. Um, But no, it's very, very hard to do. It's I'd be very surprised if you can train an AI to consistently do that. The probabilities are very low because you have to have extremely good timing. Um, with that said, I think it was partially luck that I got it on the first time here. Um, I mean, I am pretty good at doing it on the water special. Some of the other elements are harder to do it on, like the fire and electric's extremely hard to do it on, but it is possible. Um, but yeah, you can theoretically keep bouncing it back and forth between people. And if we do notice that that does become a problem, um, then we will revisit, like maybe putting like a number of times that it can be bounced back and forth, you know?
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think we got it covered for now. Please move on.
All right. Okay. So, um, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back home. Actually, I could have done it there. I don't know why I went back home, but maybe let's hop into the inspector just to show you guys that I just randomly initialized the policy this morning, so it doesn't really know what to do. Um, and what I'm going to be showing you guys is how to recover back onto platform, but not in the usual ways that I do. Specifically from a very tricky situation when you are underneath the platform, right? I think everyone kind of knows how to recover when you're on the sides of the platform. It's pretty easy. It's unidirectional where you just want to go here. But what happens when you're right here, right? You don't want to train your AI to continue to go there. So I'll show you what happens in this situation if you just train recovery in the conventional method. And then I'll show you what we're going to try and do um, as a better approach. Okay, so I'll just jump off. I'll just train the normal recovery. We just need one example per side just to show you guys what I'm referring to. Um, so this is the usual way people do it. They do it like this, and then they train the model. And if you look here, that looks pretty good. You want to go up and to the right. Here, you want to go up and to the left. That looks great. What happens when you're right underneath the platform? Well, it's still going up to the left, right? You're in this situation, 100% of the time you're going to die because you're going to hit the platform and then you're going to bounce down. And then if you look in this situation, it just goes like straight up, right? That is also not what you want to do. So what we want to train our AIs to do is to detect when they're underneath the platform on this side, because it's closer to the left-hand side, you actually want it to move to the left. And once it's here, then move to the right. Okay. And on this side, because it's closer to the right side of the platform, we want it to move to the right instead and then move to the left. Okay. So essentially, what you want to train your AI to do is when it's underneath the platform, get to safety, right? So get to a point where you're no longer underneath the platform, then recover back onto platform. Okay. And it's important that it recognizes when it's on the right side of the uh, right side of middle of the platform versus left side of middle of the platform. And you may be wondering, how would it know that? Well, because of the raycasts, right? In this situation, it's perfectly in the middle, so it wouldn't know it. But in this situation, it would. You know why? Because there's this extra raycast here, right? There's an extra raycast on the left that's intersecting and not on the right, which means that it's more to the right than the left. And similarly, if you go to this side, now there's a raycast that's intersecting on the right side that's not on the left side, which means that there's more empty space on the left side. So what you want to teach your AI to do is move to where there is more empty space. Okay? That is the idea. Um, Now, before I show you guys how to do this, because actually implementing it's another tricky thing. The first thing is realizing what we want to train our AI to do. Next is actually doing it. Does anyone have any questions on this?
Not specifically for the raycast.
Cool. Okay, let's get into it. It doesn't really matter what the opponent is. Um, so I'm just going to choose this stage. It's kind of like our most traditional stage, easiest to practice some of this stuff. So one thing I'll note also is that I'm using a 65 weight fighter. This is impossible to do with a fighter that's like 85 weight and above. It's literally impossible. You can maybe do it with an 80, a fighter that's around like 80. Um, but otherwise, you wouldn't be able to train it in this way. That's not to say you aren't able to sort of recover like this, for example, with like a 90 weight fighter. Um, but that is actually not the optimal way to train this specific scheme. The specific scheme to train this involves going all the way around the platform like this. And I'll explain why. You can imagine that there's an imaginary line in the middle over here, right? What you want to do is as soon as you cross that line to either side, that's when you want to turn on data collection. Now, with most heavy fighters, you see where I'm standing here? This is kind of like the extent to how far in the platform you can go, right? Like you can maybe go like there, but before I couldn't even recover there because I hit the platform. But like you can maybe go to here before it's too late, right? But you certainly can't go like there and then recover with a very heavy fighter. So it's very limited in terms of like the situations you can put your fighter in order to recover. That's one of the reasons I really like the lighter fighters, for example. You have so much freedom and you can show them all these different things. Okay, so let me show you the methodology that I'm going to use. Um, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put myself in a situation where I can get to the middle, and then at that point, I'm going to turn on data collection. Okay? So once I get to here, then I turn it on, and then I'm going to keep going to the other side. Okay? So this is how it'll look. So I jump, turn it on, and actually, that was a bad one. Oh, I think I mentioned before, I'm going to mess this up a lot because it's not easy to do. So I go here, then turn it on, and then recover. Okay? Again, I turn it on as soon as I pass the center. And in cases where you mess up, just click exit and then retry the session. This takes a bit of trial and error, but eventually you should get comfortable with it. Now you see in this situation what I did here that was different than the previous one is I gave my agent more space, right? Because when it has more space, it's more free to recover. But if I'm too hasty, like you saw near the end there, you hit the bottom of the platform, right? So if I do too many actions like that, I'll hit the bottom of the platform and I'll bounce down and die. Now, this is going to become very important in the configuration, but just keep this in mind that we don't always want to be doing stuff. Sometimes it's important just to let your AI hang over there. Let it fall before you do the next move, like that, right? Like this. Because otherwise, if you just pack it with moves, it'll just hit the bottom and it bounce down, okay? So now that I explained that, let me actually collect some data. So go here, pass the center, then collect. Do the same thing on the other side. Pass the center, then collect. Okay. Now in both situations, I was facing the platform. I'm also going to do it facing away from the platform. So if, oh, so that was a bad example. I was too hasty there. I'm going to restart the session. Both times to start, I'm going to face the platform. Okay. Jump, turn it on when I'm past the center. And now I'm going to face away from the platform. There you go. And then finally, I'm going to face away from the platform. There you go. So I collected it on both sides, both when I jump facing the platform and when I jump facing away from the platform. If you don't want to train direction, this might not be important, but if you do want to train direction, then it's important to do so when you're facing both sides. Okay, I'm going to end training over here and go into the training configuration. I'm going to go into advanced and I'm going to select the platforms as we do normally. I'm going to select your action and I'm going to click over sampling. Okay, I'll explain why in a second, but let's just train this and see what happens. So let me put my agent underneath. Do you see what happened over here, guys? So now our agent, when it passes the center, right, on the left side, it is most likely going to go to the left side, right? When it's to the right side, it's most likely going to go to the right side, right? So we're teaching our agent to go to where there is empty space. Once it reaches empty space, it goes to the left, right? Now, if it goes further over here, it doesn't really know what to do because we never actually put it in that scenario, right? Literally, what we did is we went here, and then immediately when we got here, we kind of clinged onto the platform. Same thing here, left side. Immediately when we got here, we clinged to the platform, right? Because we really didn't have enough space to go like all the way over here, you know? So what we would do then is we would use this as the base. We would use this as the base for our model. And then the next session, we would stack on top of it how to recover from over here and over here, because it doesn't really know how yet. Also, one thing to note that's important is that um, every single time I followed the exact same sequence of actions to recover. Okay, so I did the uppercut. So I jumped to get into position. Then I did the uppercut. And then when I was here, I did the flip kick. Same thing here. I did the uppercut. When I was here, I did the flip kick. So it successfully learned that. But what you might want to do is switch it up. Okay, you might not always want to use the exact same actions to recover in the same sequence. And the reason for that is because if you do an uppercut, for example, over here, and then you find yourself in this situation, your AI is not going to know what to do and it could fall to its death because you only have one uppercut per time in the air until such a time that you either get hit again or until you fall on the ground, right? So you need to teach your AI that basically it tries uppercut, but it can also try other things, like another jump, for example, just in case it used up its uppercut and it still has a jump in its inventory. Okay. Um, a lot of people ask me how I did how I trained this because I think you saw a few videos of my AI doing this. This is how I did it. Obviously, not just one session. I do it over multiple sessions, but this is kind of the idea. And one thing I also want to note is the reason I used oversampling and I didn't click remove sparsity is because you want sparsity. Remember how I said if you do too much, you're going to hit the top really fast. So you want actually there to be some probability that you just fall, right? You, I don't know if you can see it here, but you see how the decreases, actually, you can clearly see it here, that the decreases in probability are much larger than this increase. And it's because the residual increase is going to the idle, right? So there's an invisible probability here, which is just doing nothing. And so you see here that there is a big probability that went to doing nothing. I think it was like um I don't know if I can do the math right now. So like 24 plus 28 um 52 and just 16. So like 36% probability increase in idle, which is massive. So that part is very, very important because often what I see is that a lot of people's AIs get too excited around the edge and they just jump in and hit the top, right? And then they just die. But what you need is you need to give it time to fall a bit, create the distance before you do the next attack. Okay, I said a lot. I'm revealing my secrets to you guys. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, we got some, and giving a round of applause to D Chunks first, because before you went into the configuration, D Chunks asked that does that mean remove sparsity should be avoided because
Yes.
pauses and idle is essential. I mean, like he been going into the bits and know-how to the depth of our game, so it's,
I love
applause
that.
to D Chunks.
I love that. I love that people, yeah, you're generating intuition already. That yes, exactly. You shouldn't do remove idle in the situations where you want your AI to have an increased probability of doing nothing because it is useful. It's not always useful to keep doing stuff, you know? Similarly, actually, like this is unrelated to this, but in situations where you know how a lot of times people always have max probability of doing attacks, like and moving towards the opponent, that might not always be wanted because every attack has something that's called end lag. And so, if, for example, over time, I assume people are going to get way, way, way better at um, training their AIs to counterattack, especially when we start incorporating one of the features which will be the frame of the animation. So AIs will be able to know whether you're just starting an attack or ending it or in the middle of it. And so, for example, if you keep training an AI to just always attack, then it could be the case that your opponent specifically trains to follow when you're in end leg and then attack there because they know that you can't do anything, right? You're kind of stuck in the end part of the animation where you have to follow through on the attack. So in those cases, it might be beneficial to train idle. But I know I'm getting ahead of myself because we haven't included that in the game yet. But that's another thing that I think will become really, really important. And it's very important in fighting games in general. People care a lot about like how long each move has in end leg so that they can counter.
So now D Chunks also got would like you to go through the airborne attack reset condition. So if you attack someone with an airborne attack, like when would it get reset? And if you got attacked at airborne, would yours get reset? Maybe we can cover that briefly.
Ah, yes, yeah, yeah. So if you attack um someone in the air, your aerials do not get reset. It's only when you get attacked. And the reason for that is just to give people some way to recover, right? Like you can imagine if you're about to recover onto platform and then you get attacked over here and you used all your recoveries and now you're over here and you just die, like that's not a very fun experience, right? Um, so as soon as you get hit again, then you have all of your aerials again, and so you have one uppercut, you have one additional aerial jump, you have one up special, um, and yeah, those should be all of them. And then of course you have the side aerials. So like the kick to the side and the back air. So you have one of
Hmm.
those per air session, and you can think about it that if you're in the air and someone hits you and knocks you back, then all of those attacks for that air session get reset. Does that make sense?
Got it, got it. Very cool. And the horizontal kick, like you mentioned, that one can be done like infinitely because it doesn't give you vertical like recovery.
I have to double check. I don't think it can be done infinitely. Um, let's hop into training just to show you why. It's really helpful for recovery actually. The reason because it moves very fast, right? So this, for example, it moves very fast. So sometimes you might be about to die and you might not be able to make it. Like for example, if you just do like a side punch, you see that I died there if that was my only option, but I can do this to get back onto platform, right? Same thing with the back air. It's more horizontal movement. It almost like stalls you in air. So you can imagine if we allow people to do like an infinite amount of those. Actually, I think you can do infinite back airs. Let me see if you can do the other one. No, I don't think you could do the other one. So you can do infinite back airs. We might need to revisit that, but you can only do one of these. Um, yeah, I might need to revisit the the back air thing. Thank you for pointing that out. Um, maybe we do want to keep it, but yeah, certainly this one is very, very beneficial for getting back onto platform.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, that explained all the questions from D Chunks. We got two more questions
Okay.
if it doesn't interrupt the flow.
No, no, it doesn't. That was the main thing I wanted to show you guys anyways. So yeah, I'm all here for answering questions now.
Reggie's from the Treasure Cup finalist asked that why do you not focus on positioning? We're doing the under the main stage recovery.
That's a good question. Um, okay, yeah, so let me just collect some data just to, and then I'll exit over here. Um, that's an excellent question. Oh, by the way, for those people who don't know, we have like a tutorial on all of the features over here. Um, so the idea is basically with positioning, you can know your X and Y coordinates, right? It's rescaled between like 0 and 1, but you can know where you are. So I guess Reggie's question is like, okay, if you're in the middle, you're at 0, right? So you know that if it's negative, you're to the left of the middle of the platform, and if it's positive, you're to the right of the middle of the platform. So you can use that to inform you on how far to go. Um, now, while this is technically true, there are some limitations. So I would say it's never a bad thing to also incorporate this. I think it would certainly be a beneficial feature to also add. Um, but I'll mention two things. Um, One of them is that it might not seem like a problem right now if you were to use this because of the fact that all of the stages are placed in the center of the map, right? If, for example, in the future, we choose to move the one of the stages to the right side of the map, just as an example, right? And we choose like maybe we have three stages, one here, and one here. So sorry, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but one here, and one here. Um, then what would happen is if you're using the center position as like your anchor to whether to move left and right, it's not super reliable, right? So for example, if you're on the right of the platform and you're underneath this one, you're always going to move to the right, right? Because you were trained when the X position is positive, move to the right, and so you're hit up on the bottom. Um, so that's one thing, and also um, if the size of the hard platform changes drastically, like so for example, if I'll use these two guys as the anchor for the size. So let's say it's this big, right? Um, you kind of know that, so if negative 0.26 is the left limit, so the left ledge, then you can train your AI to say, okay, once it hits like negative 0.35, then you start going right. And on the other side, when it hits positive 0.35, start going left. But what happens if we introduce a new stage that's this big, right? Then it's going to hit negative 0.35 and move right and hit the bottom, right? Um, so those are some of the difficulties with just relying on that. Um, Raycasts, on the other hand, are a lot more general purpose. So let me move these out of the way. Um, if you look at something like this, um, regardless of how big the platform is, so if the platform's super big, then you know that all of these are going to intersect. And so what you're going to need to do is just basically let it drop until such a time that you find the empty space and then go there. And that applies with any size of platform, with any position of platform. So here you know the empty space is here. Here you know the empty space is here, right? And so it doesn't matter where we put the platform, it's going to be able to detect basically where the empty space is and go in that direction. Okay. Um, Now, that's not to say that positioning is not important. I think positioning is extremely important, and sometimes I do couple it with raycasts. But the thing that I use positioning more for is detecting when I'm near the edge of the map, because those are very dangerous areas, right? So when you're on the extremes, like when you're close to -1, you very much want to move to the right. And when you're close to +1, you very much want to move to the left. Now, can become very important when you want to when you want to teach your AI to chase the opponent, but not chase them too close to the edge, right? So maybe you want to chase them until like 0.7. And then at that point, it's not worth it to keep chasing them because you're approaching the edge. So you're going to want to return to center, right? So that's what I mostly use it for. And similarly for the opponent, if you know the opponent's close to the edge, right, then you can almost ensure a kill shot if you hit them here, right? So that's what I use positioning for a lot more. I don't necessarily use it as much for recovery. I hope that makes sense.
Generalization, that's a
Yes.
word.
Generalization is very important because even though we have these stages in there now, we are planning to introduce some more stages and some more different setups to throw off the AIs because ultimately we want people to train AIs to generalize well. One word we do not like is overfitting. We don't want people to overfit to a certain map. Um, so yeah, I'll just
That's
put that out there.
Reggie's very happy for the answer.
I'm very
And
happy for the question.
our last question would be from Mandelbrot, slightly different than what we're discussing here. Is asking that, say, if you're manually controlling the bot, right? When you get
Mm,
knocked down, and then you hold the shield button, the first frame that you kind of get up, you are already entering the shooting stance. So he's asking if you collect data like that, would that causes AI when at a knockdown stage? When it stand up, first frame would enter the shooting stance just like he did manually. Very niche question, but
Damn, that is a good question. Um, oh shit. I will have to double check the code. Um, I will have to double check the code. I think okay, so I think we have something in the AI's state, and I still haven't put it in here yet. It's for the action representation. Um, I have to double check. I'll get back to you right after this because I don't want to open up the code on stream. um, but I know we have one feature in there to say whether you're vulnerable or not. So, for example, if you're in the knockback state, you're vulnerable and you can't do anything. I have to check if that applies to when you're on the ground. If it does, then you will be able to do that. So you will be able to teach your AI when I'm in this state, hold the shield. But let me double check and then I can respond back. I don't know which channel is appropriate, if it's like the general chat channel, but I'll respond back to you.
in general chat would be good. Let's share the intuition with everyone.
Cool.
And he specifically mentioned holding down the button. I think we covered that like
Yes.
briefly last time, right? If you're holding down the button on the machine side, it looks like that you are like pressing the button continuously.
That is
On
correct. That is correct. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So I think that would be clear. Simulation like okay, so yeah, nothing to add on Mendo's side. Let's revisit it afterward. And I think this covered all of the questions for this session.
Cool. Yeah, I mean that was it, guys. I just wanted to show you guys my little secret on how I trained Recover back onto platform from underneath. Of course, what I just showed you was one instance. So what you would need to do is train that, use that as the base, and then train from the sides as well. So my flow is basically I always start here because for some reason it's harder to do this after I train from the sides. I have to look into that. I don't know if it's just a strong like anchoring bias. So I start with this one, then I train from the sides, and usually my AI is pretty good at recovering from everywhere. And then sometimes if the sides kind of take over too much of the probability, then I'll revisit this and I'll kind of go back and forth until it's refined to the point where I'm really, really happy with it. So that's kind of it, guys. I'm very excited to see you guys implement this. I think it's going to bring this to another level when we stop seeing AIs like hit the bottom of the platform and just dying. Of course, it will still happen. Things happen. I mean, it happens when I'm playing like as a human. So I assume when you have probabilistic decision making, it'll also happen. But yeah, I think this will elevate a lot of AIs to the next level.
Certainly, and like Reggie's was just mentioning that he was trying to train that back in the Treasure Cup final, but like I mean, you sharing this secret sauce right now, so opening it up for competition,
Yes,
maybe
sir.
even for Lober, maybe even for
Yeah,
Lober.
let's see with Loba. And I will say that when I tried doing it like from here, so for example, like jumping off from here and then just reversing course, it never worked well. I don't know why. It just never worked well. I think the interpolation got really messed up. If you're not like really close to the center when you start it. So yeah, just wanted to put that out there, and it takes kind of a lot of trial and error to figure out like the right technique. One, to actually execute it, but two, to actually like make the AI learn what you wanted it to learn. So yeah, I hope this is helpful, guys.
Awesome, awesome. All right, looking forward to the fierce competition coming out. Let's give Guppy let's see, can I do it
Awesome,
with a
thanks.
round?
Oh,
Yeah,
how'd you do
that's a
that?
sound port.
That's dope.
Copy.
It's
I have a question.
Yeah,
Um, is the config tutorials live now? Because I just saw you click something and
yeah, it's
the
live.
guide is. Oh, I don't know if people know this.
I don't know, but
I
yeah,
thought I thought it was still under like I don't know. I didn't know if it was fully deployed.
yeah, it's live, guys. We for some of this stuff we have like some simple explanations for like learning rate, for example. We have more technical explanations where we kind of like walk through it and you can see kind of like what actually happens in the loss function. Not all of them are done yet. For example, you saw an action representation, it wasn't done. It's a live kind of documentation, so we're going to be adding as time goes on, and hopefully soon everything will be completely finished. But yeah, most of the stuff is in here, so you can kind of see exactly what each of these do. You can see the effect that it has on the input for the AI, right? And yeah, so you can just like, and we give some training tips over here. So enjoy, guys. Yeah, take a look at it. Yeah, it's fully kind of like it's pretty dynamic documentation. The only thing is that it's after you do a training session, and when the training config is up, it's this little button at the top. We might make it red to make it stand out more, because maybe I think a lot of people don't know it's there. But we will do some stuff to make it stand out more so that everyone knows it's there.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, we'll probably sign off, but thanks a lot for listening. And if you have any questions about anything I said, just drop it in the general chat, and we'll make sure to respond.
Yes, sir. And there would be no quiz for today. To supplement it, we will be dropping some AP for everyone who have attended this session. So the next quiz will be resumed next week. So thank you for joining, guys.
Cheers, everyone.